for your Golden Globe win. Niecy for your Critics' Choice, Critics' Circle win, thank you. You did us proud, and both of you for your SAG nominations. It's pretty amazing thing. So Netflix hit over 1 billion hours viewed.
And thank you for coming. It feels amazing to know that you were a part of storytelling that went around the world a couple of times, you know, and to be able to form relationships, personal and professional, with the likes of this cute thing right here. Yeah, it was just amazing because you didn't know that was going to happen. We entered in trying to roll up our sleeves and unpack this work. And you know what I mean, went home with heavy hearts and tears in the corners of our eyes. And then the next thing you know, it was like, wait, what just happened?
But Niecy, you knew this was going to happen when you were 7, right?
I didn't know this part was going to happen. What Paris is speaking to is the very first time we were talking about when people enter the business and why. And some people enter because they want to be famous. You know, it wasn't my story. I just wanted to be a part of great storytelling. And even as a little girl, I was on Hollywood Boulevard with my dad, and we were looking at the stars, and I look up and I see this guy, and I'm like, Daddy, that man is on TV, and I know it. And he said, baby, that's Ed Asner. So I walk up to him, and I was like, sir, I know you were on TV, and I'm gonna be on TV too one day, and my name is gonna be right here on this ground. And he was like, yeah, kid's ground. And he was walking away, and I was yelling, remember my name! And when I was blessed to get my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, thank you. Guess who came to my ceremony?
Former SAG president come to your ceremony.
Yes, he did.
Now, Evan, I know you love awards. Why don't you talk about the joy you receive when you get it?
I just feel incredibly grateful. Everybody worked so hard on this series, and I just feel incredibly grateful. It's a very surreal experience.
One of the things that you've always shown me whenever you've been, blessed to do this is you have so much humility. And in a way, I think you don't recognize your own genius sometimes. I mean, there is something going on in Evan Peters that I'd like to figure out tonight.
I'm very nervous tonight, by the way. I'm like freaking out a little bit.
Well, let's just talk for a minute. Just a little. I really want to talk about the sandwich scene. I don't know. You guys just watched it, okay? That scene was 7 minutes and 35 seconds long. I timed it last night.
Sheesh.
And it's just the two of them, and that's sort of the main big scene you had in the entire 10-episode process. So Evan, you get that scene, you read it. What did you immediately start thinking about?
I have to start memorizing this. No, it was. I was very excited. Niecy and I had some very quick scenes, intense but very quick. So I was very excited to be able to work on a 5-page scene with you. So I was excited and immediately started working on it.
But were you anything that, were you just, it's so cool, I get to bring her a sandwich of human remains? Or did you just think, how are we going to do this?
To me, it was, the intentions of the scene were tough. He really wants her to take back the complaint, but I think he also knows that she won't. So he wants to try to punish her in some way. And even if she does, he still is going to punish her with that. But what I loved about the scene is that Niecy's character, Glenda, gets to take away all of his power. You see him struggling, what normally he would do, he can't do in this situation. So he's trapped, and it's checkmate. So it's a beautiful scene to see Glenda have all of that power to stand up to him, and he has no other choice but to walk away and get out of the room. So I love that scene.
It's so interesting because I feel like in that scene, it was Glenda trying to give Jeffrey her best poker face.
Yeah.
Because at the core, as an artist, the charge, once you read it on the paper, was how do you balance being the most afraid you've ever been in your life, but to try to stand up as if, you know what I mean? And inside yourself, you can hear your knees knocking, you can hear your heart beating, and you think it's so loud that it's audible, you know, but you have to put that face on and step on that fear. But I want to, it's a thin line because you want the audience to know you're afraid. You know what I mean? You want them to know your truth, but not the person who's opposite you to know your truth. So I felt like I was tap dancing on a Cheerio.
And also, I was there that day. I didn't direct that scene. That was Jennifer Lynch, but I was there that day, and I was banned from the set. And that rehearsal took a couple hours. And I remember Ryan was there, and Jen Lynch, the director, was there. And so in that conversation, what did you discover? Bring us inside of that, because you must have gone back and forth about how the scene would be done, or...
You know, I just remember Ryan coming in and saying, I want to be here for this. And we were like, oh Lord, the pressure.
Because he hadn't been around.
No, and he showed up and was like, do it. I want to see it. And we were like, oh my, y'all, please don't tell him I did an impression of him. Because I want to be in his next movie.
Maybe too late.
I want to be in his next movie. But I just remember that was the thing that made me be like, oh God. You know what I mean? When the person who has crafted all of this is standing before you and basically saying, now act. You like, okay. No pressure.
Evan, do you remember any of that back and forth then?
I honestly, I don't remember a lot of, I remember him watching it. We ran it a few times. I think he really didn't have that many notes. It was more about sort of where we would be maybe and having it be a standoff. And I think he just wanted to make sure that, I guess we were doing what he wanted, but yeah, he gave us the creative freedom to really play around with it. So.
But there's also a marvelous, it's almost like a chord of tension between the two of you. At the end of the scene, when you're standing up to each other and we could just see that little quiver, there's a back and forth. There's, I don't know if you felt it, it's almost a call and response of emotion happening there. And Jeffrey goes from chillingly sort of evil, like I could kill you in this minute, and suddenly this smile blooms, and then you try to interpret that. I mean, how does that work? I want to know about the alchemy about that. There's something that's not just happening on the page or with each of you, but between you. That's really interesting.
I feel like, for me, part of my process is to be very, very present with the person that I'm working with. Because you could go home and you could try to pull all your tricks out of a bag, and then you get there, and based on what the person is giving you, your tricks may not work. So you gotta respect that part of it and know that it is an exchange of energy, and that sometimes, you know, my better half calls it leaving room for magic. Everything can't be so strict and rigid and formulated in your process that you don't leave room for those things, because it wasn't even on the page that when he walks out, my reaction, you know, but that it was almost like she was holding her breath the whole time. But I was only able to find that because I was present in the exchange with what Evan was giving me, so.
And Evan, for you, I mean, is it?
It's I think it's both. I think I feel like sometimes I come there with an idea and a plan and things. I mean, you know, I'm always asking for.
He has a plan.
Sarah Paulson taught me. She's like, always ask for one more. Okay, that's
or 10 more.
Or yeah, 15 more. Yeah. Sorry about that.
But that's okay.
Yeah, so I guess there's this idea of chasing after that and wanting it to be that way, but it is sometimes futile, and I think that you're absolutely right. One of the first things that I ever learned was that you have to be in the moment, and I think it can be so scary. One of the very first acting classes I ever went to, the coach had us stand on a chair and jump off of it, and he was like, that's what acting is supposed to feel like. And it's crazy because I really did chase after these ideas of what I thought maybe it should be, and particularly in a scene with Richard Jenkins in episode 4 at the diner, I was really, really struggling to get what I wanted to do there, and he was very helpful in sort of re-explaining that you have to go with what's in the moment, regardless of what it is, and if it feels wrong and you're terrified and oh my God, what is it going to be? I don't know. He goes, it's so much better to go with what is in the moment. So that was a huge lesson for me, and I carry that with me throughout shooting. And he said you can really feel like you're free falling, and that reminded me of that very first acting class that I had. This thing that I did after I watched the series, I called Ryan and I said, Niecy is phenomenal in the
Yes.
series. Really, really phenomenal in the series. Two scenes come to mind, and one is the one with Jesse Jackson, where you're breaking down. It is gut-wrenching, and you see all of your pain in that moment. And also in the hallway with the cops, and you're screaming and so emotional and so upset that you called and they didn't listen. And that to me embodies the whole message of the series. And it was just absolutely beautiful, the work that you did. Yeah.
And Niecy?
Very docile, never raised his voice. But when you said, I threw it out and I told you what I said, and then I forget what I say, but you took one step towards me. It was a tiny step, but it felt so aggressive, even though it was pianissimo. And it made Glenda step back and say, oh, let me clutch my pearls. Wait a minute, what's going on? So I love the intensity that you would bring and these little moments where you would say so much while saying so little.
Thank you.
I love that. And
Initially, I just really approached it as a psychological study, a research on trying to learn. I read all the books and articles and timelines, confessions, psychology reports. I really tried to learn the history and get the facts right, but then also figure out why he would do something like this.
can you tell us?
No, I don't. It's the one thing that I did find that was sort of a key to unlocking him was that he was, you see in his interviews that he has this form of regret, probably nowhere near what you or I would have, but he is really confused about why he did what he did and understands that it was wrong and tried to self-medicate with alcohol, but ultimately chose to cross over the moral code that you or I have and commit these atrocities. But it started somewhere, but he called it the long slide down. So it really deteriorated into a compulsion that he couldn't control anymore, and he completely lost himself, and it just borders on evil. So to me it was just really about learning all of that, trying to understand that, and then sort of plotting out the deterioration of him into this.
Over time?
I will tell you this, my real life daughter played my daughter in the movie. She was the little spicy one who took the camera and threw it on the ground and stepped on it. That little thing, she belongs to me. And so, because this material was so weighty and so painful, I spent a lot of days teary-eyed, or very emotional on set. But when kids are around, they don't know. You know what I mean? They are just like, it's so above their heads. And so I'm in the corner, I'm trying to get myself together. My daughter's like, hey mom, wanna do a TikTok? And I'm like, girl, what? And the next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, we ticking and talking, and I don't know what we was in there doing. And it brought such a lightness to the space for me, and I needed it. I was clinging on to it like a life raft, because it was those little moments of having her with me that were really a gift.
And Evan, did you find any bright days?
I loved working with you. It was really fun, and we also, I don't know if you felt this way, but I really felt like it was just such a, just sometimes after we would shoot stuff, I would feel with the crew there and everybody busting their ass or working really hard and really quickly, and and dealing with double up days, triple up days, all sorts of things. Like, at the end of one of those days where it was incredibly difficult, it did bring joy. I felt like we did it. We all worked together really hard, and you gave me a million takes, and it was so, it was an incredible feeling. It really was.
And I have to give you props here in this space of actors, because with Riley Burford, who played Tony in episode 106, that was his first acting job. He'd only been on a reality television show before this. You took such great care of him, and that to me made me totally like Evan Peters stand forever. Because you can also be completely involved in what you have to do, but by taking care of him, you elevated both of you. And I just thought that's a lesson I would love to see more often, because that to me extended like a sword. And it changed his life. I mean, it changed his life, it changed his performance, and we got to see that, there can be light in this darkness. So to me, that's one of the things that I hung on to.
Well, there were vibes with regards to that, because you took care of him, I took care of you, my daughter took care of me. You know what I mean? It was just like this, it just kept going. It kept going. And so, but it starts at the top.
Ryan Murphy. Well, he's the one who cast us all in this. Okay, we only have a few more minutes, but I did want to get to it. I got so many other questions.
Hard. But the Conarac stuff was incredibly difficult to shoot, and very scary to shoot, and I was very relieved when that episode was completed.
Yeah, that was very difficult for the crew also.
Yeah.
Just because it's something no one really wanted to see, and we had to shoot it in a way that was respectful to the actors. At the same time, it is the horror of Jeffrey Dahmer. Just from our side also.
I think it's the I don't know. It's sort of the challenge of it all, the obsession of it all, the working on it, the continually thinking about it and trying to better it, and what can I do, and getting in a creative flow. I can't think of anything better than when you get in that zone and you're just experimenting and playing around and seeing what works, what doesn't, chasing after something and not getting it or getting it. It's always a challenge, and it's always different. I will say it's a really tough act to follow. but I did notice that when I started to really focus and prioritize the work, I started when I was 15, and I was playing around a lot and partying and having fun and not really applying myself. And then all of a sudden I thought, shit, I'm getting older, I need to really start focusing on this. And I did that, and once I did that, I started to work more. I started to actually work and get jobs, and then get into the minutia of the characters and the parts and acting, and what is it? And this is so weird what we're doing with the camera and all these different things, and really breaking it down and trying to figure out what it is. And now I'm just completely obsessed and in love with it, and I can't stop. It's really amazing. So I would. I always said, maybe don't stay out at the party and do those extra lines. Maybe go home and memorize.
Excellent advice to leave on. I love it. Thank you very much, Ms. Niecy Nash-Betts and Mr. Evan Peters.
Thank you.
So much for being here.
Awesome. Congratulations.
That's all we have time for. We appreciate you.
Congratulations.